Welcome back to Missin Curfew. Jay Swish, Four Nations right around the corner. This guy's two boys are going to be a big part of Team USA. And this guy's an absolute legend when it comes to NHL, USA hockey. Let's just listen to these stats before we bring him in. 538 goals, 1,065 points, and this is my favorite, 2,219 PIMs. We're talking about Big Walt, Keith Tkachuk. Big Walt, thank you for taking the time, buddy. And those numbers, I mean, I don't have to tell you, but where's the Hall of Fame fella? They should be calling, my man.
Well, I appreciate that, buddy. I probably should have stayed out of the box a little more. Maybe I could have produced a little bit more than that. So, oh well, I loved it.
Yeah, so obviously the way your boys play and, you coming up, going to BU, was physicality always part of your game, Big Walt? Or when you got to the NHL, is that where you started realizing, hey, I'm bigger than everybody or as big as guys and I want to bring that element? Or is that something you grew up with in Boston, just played that way?
You know what? I grew up, like I said, in Boston, and I was a huge Bruins fan. And for years, that's the way they played. I mean, who didn't love, guys like Terry O'Reilly, Stan Jonathan? I mean, it was so much fun. And I felt as I got older and was bigger and liked to play that power game, it would have helped me, come in the league. There wasn't a lot of Americans back then. So you needed to find something. Everybody has skill or does that well, but you needed to bring a different blend to the game, and it helps you. It helped me a lot. And, I learned from some great people at Boston University and found my way to the peg.
Yeah, what about a guy like Cam Neely, Big Walt? Like I saw a clip of him yesterday on social media where it was just him playing the game the right way. Was that a guy that you kind of turned your game around, or was he just still a little bit too young for you?
Yeah, two of my favorite players, in that era was Ray Bourque and Cam Neely. I mean, Cam Neely was the ultimate power forward. He could go around you, he can go through you, he can beat you up. I mean, he was a massive, physical player who had a great scoring touch. So obviously, I chose number 8 in Atlanta because of Cam. Plus, that in 7 wasn't available, but obviously those two guys were, and to be able to get to play against them was incredible.
Yeah, my uncle played for the Bruins back in the day, Dennis O'Brien, and my dad tells me about going to watch him at the old Boston's Gardens. Well, what was it like for a young kid like yourself? I never got to go to the Boston Garden, just saw it on TV, but what was it like going to that rink and seeing games there, and such an intimate barn, right?
Oh, it's unbelievable. I mean, that's the rink that we're fortunate to go to once in a while, and it's just something else. It's like those old arenas. Like, it's right on top of you. The locker rooms are shit. It's just you got to walk through. You got to walk through the people to get to the bench back in the old days. And I was fortunate enough to play there and when I was at Boston University for a year, and then be able to do that for a couple of years as a pro. It was amazing. I mean, Boston Garden, places like that, Maple Leaf Garden, Chicago Stadium, Montreal. It was just, those are the places that I was fortunate enough to be able to play. Those are the places I grew up watching, to be able to go there and be a player when I was that young kid being a fan. I mean, they had holes in the way. It was just, I don't know, some obstructive view seats. It was awesome.
And Big Walt, obviously I'm a former college hockey guy myself, North Dakota, BU, strong, storied bloodbath rivalry in a sense of those two teams. Obviously North Dakota being all west, but BU being right in the heart of the city. Was it always BU for you, like growing up, watching those teams, Jack Parker getting recruited by him? Like, talk to me on that front. Did you have any other teams in the Boston area you wanted to go to, or was it always the Terriers?
It was one of those things, like when you grew up in Boston, you didn't think of anything else besides you went from high school hockey right to college. And growing up in that area, you had so many different places you can go to. But I just felt with Jack Parker, the history of Boston University, the players that were already there, I felt like that was, the best path for me to get to, that next step, which was the NHL. So it was a no-brainer for me, but, there are so many great avenues to go. But in Boston, you have your BCs, your Northeasterns, your BUs. You didn't have to travel all the way out to like Michigan or North Dakotas, who have great programs, in Michigan State, but just felt I was a Boston kid, wanted to stay there. And I got to play with Sean McEachran and Tony Amate and, Scarlett Chance and guys like that. So that was the perfect opportunity for me to be a pro.
Yeah, speaking of BU, Big Walt, the old bean pot was on, I think, either last night or maybe the night before. BU's got better uniforms than BC, I'll say that right now. I like those Terrier uniforms, but how big of a deal is the bean pot? Is it just, bragging rights or growing up in Boston? Like, how big of that tournament is for boys at BU and BC and all the schools in the area?
I mean, growing up, that's where everybody wants to go watch. Yeah, there's four teams, the same four teams every year, but there's so much history there, and it was an incredible experience as a kid to go watch and then to be able to play in it. And last night was wow. BU obviously is a great program. The BC has the best team in the country, and to go out and beat them last night. I mean, I didn't get to watch the game because I was traveling back, but it's a great thing for BU. I mean, it really is. It's bragging rights for a year. I know it's only it happens the first two Mondays of February, but it's an incredible experience. But for BU to go out last night, wow, that was huge.
Yeah, the atmosphere in that barn, Jay Swish, I don't know if you caught it. It was electrifying in there. And like you said, it was 1 versus 9. And I was just like, this has got to be a great atmosphere. I was trying to compare it to something back home. Like, I don't know, like there's nothing really back in Canada that compares to a bean pot like that, Jay Swish.
No, there's not, and especially just being college hockey, and obviously I was out west, and I never got a chance to play in something like that, but it's a tradition every year, Obst. All of college hockey's watching. Everyone that loves hockey in the U.S., they're always watching, and it's safe to say, I think, when it's BU and it's Boston College, that's always the best final, Big Walt?
Yeah, it is. It really is. I mean, Northeastern, I got to give them credit. I think they won 4 years in a row. I forget what years they won, but it always seems to be a BCBU final, especially back in the days. And then kids choose schools based on an ability to play in the Beanpot. I know it sounds strange. It's only, it happens every year, but there's a lot of history there. People grow up. It's a big thing in Boston, but everybody wants to see the BCBU final. Absolutely. And BU's got the bragging rights this year. Yeah. BC might have something to say about it, tending for a national championship, which I expect, both teams to be going down the stretch together again.
That's awesome to hear a legend like yourself say that's how important the Bean Pod is. That makes me appreciate it a little bit more. So I want to ask you real quick before we move on back to your career, Big Walt. Obviously, sports are changing, right? We see it in NCAA football. We got these quarterbacks making $4 bananas a year now to, play college football. I saw a guy from the OHL got, I think, $1 million to come to Boston College for next year. As a guy who played NCAA and Jay Swish as well, what do you think moving forward here with this, CHL guys coming down? Is it a good thing in your opinion, or is it going to change the landscape too much?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, obviously, it's I don't know how this is going to play out, but it's I think it's you want the best for the game of hockey, and if you can get all the best kids together playing, and it's hard because you're asking these kids in the CHL, who are 16 years old to fully commit and not be able to go to college afterwards. And things change every year, but we'll see how it plays out. The money is crazy. And who is that player that's going to be seen next year making $1 million?
I don't know. I have to look it up. It came across my social media.
You don't think the Tkachuks could have used that back in the day? We didn't come from much. That would have been nice.
That's what I said. He wasn't even drafted. I got drafted 8th round. My signing bonus was $100,000, Big Walt. I'm like, I would have went right to BC for $1 million, fella.
My grandfather gave me $20 after every weekend. That was huge back then. That's what I had to go out with. And, didn't get you very much, but it was now these kids, one kid from Michigan football is going to be getting $14 million from, NIL money. But hey, you know what? The kids, I don't know how this ends, but the players and the athletes deserve something out of it besides obviously getting an education is very important, but, they're selling jerseys and all these tickets, they should get something out of it, but it's crazy money.
Yeah, it certainly is. Big Walt, going back to your career, buddy, I was always, ever since I met you, I was just curious about, you leave BU and you go right to the heart of Canada, Winnipeg, playing in that old barn. I mean, listen, I used to love going into Winnipeg on the road, and we joke about going to Earl's and having beers all day, but I was ready to get out of there. First of all, how great was that old barn? I played it in my first year in the American League, and did you embrace Winnipeg when you were there?
Yeah, I got to play in the NHL. I didn't know, I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't know much about, that part of Canada. But I know they love hockey. I know it's cold up there, but I had a blast. It was a lot of fun. They took me in and treated me well. And, I look back at it, it seems like so long ago, but I enjoyed it. My wife's family's from there. So, it's nice for the boys to go back there and visit their grandfather. But, it was a really, really awesome place. Craig Heisinger works for that team. He's one of my closest friends, and, you wish them the best, but the fans deserve a team there for sure.
Yeah, that old rink though, like we were talking about the Boston Garden, like that old rink was right on top of you with I think a picture of the Queen at the one end and the upper level feel like they were hanging right over top. It must have been unbelievable playing in the NHL.
It was. Randy Gillen used to try to put the puck all the way up there to hit that thing. So yeah, I mean, they was buzzing during the playoffs with the whiteout for sure. I don't know if the infrastructure there could have lasted any longer, but it was a unique building for sure.
And Big Walt, I wanted to ask you, at that time you had played 6, 7, 8 years, or whatever it was in Winnipeg to start your career. Obviously got off on a great foot, a beloved fan favorite there. But when you traded the mink fur coat jacket in for a pair of sandals down in AZ, was it a blessing in disguise, or were you sad leaving Winnipeg? Obviously your wife and her family is from there. Was it, was it a sad time, or were you excited to get down to the desert?
Well, when you went down to Arizona, I mean, I will say this about Winnipeg, though. Winnipeg, as a team, you're all connected. You're all there. You do a lot of stuff with the families, and you have some good times. Obviously, now you go down. It happened so fast, by the way. Not as fast as Phoenix or Arizona going to Utah, but we knew in advance that it was going to happen. They flew us down there during All-Star break, and when you walk out and you're staying at the Phoenician and then you're wearing flip-flops and ability to play some golf. It was pretty special. We had some good teams down there too, but but it was a tough transition, but also the people in Arizona have embraced us, and it was sad for the people in Winnipeg, and that's why I'm glad eventually a team went back there.
You guys had great teams. I remember watching you when you played downtown in the downtown arena. I know it was set up for basketball, much like Utah, but I remember the whiteouts. I remember you and Ronan. I mean, you guys had some good fucking teams, and those whiteouts there were just as intense as Winnipeg almost, eh, Big Walt?
Yeah, it was great down there. We had teams that made the playoffs every year. The place was packed. They love hockey. You had a lot of transplants from Minnesota, Michigan, a lot of people, and from Western Canada. So they love their hockey. Sometimes when you played Detroit or Chicago, you felt like you were an away team, but it was pretty cool. We had great players there, and Shane, Doan, JR, Teppo. We had Mike Gardner down there. We had some successful teams. It's just, whatever happens. But then, you move on.
Yeah, that's okay. Jay Swish is going to bring a team back, right? Jay Swish, you already got the moving parts for it, don't you, fella?
Yeah, let me see if I can call my guy at the Live Golf Tour. Maybe can fund us some oil money or just an ACHA wire and get it over here. So, but Big Walt, I wanted to ask you, I mean, you played with legends. JR, you mentioned, Teppo Nieminen, and as well as the real Rocket, Tkachuk. Where were you guys living down here? Because this is where I'm at right now in Scottsdale. Were you guys North Scottsdale? Were you?
Yeah, Northeast Scottsdale. All the rich guys like JR and Tkachuk lived in Paradise Valley, but I lived out in Northeast Scottsdale. It was awesome. They had a practice rink out there that was unbelievable. I don't know what they turned it into now, but it was pretty cool living out there. The travel was tough. When you're out west, you're on the road for 6 games, and but then you're fortunate to come home to have a bunch of games at home. But we all lived out in Northeast Scottsdale. I don't know where the guys live now, but you had everything out there you wanted. It was awesome. Waking up every day, wearing shorts to the rink, and guys like JR would have the motorcycle going to practice. But it was all new out there for hockey too. But not only we had to play on the ice, we had to do a lot of stuff off the ice to promote the game and promote the team, and that's where JR played a huge role. And I'm so happy JR got into the Hall of Fame. It's about time for him. He's a great man. I love that kid. He's a great teammate and a great player.
Yeah, I'm looking at your 97-98 team here, Big Walt. You scored 40 and you had 147 PIMs. JR had 100 PIMs, and the real Rocket Tkachuk had 157. But how nice must it have been for a guy like yourself to have talks on that team with you? Because you could handle yourself, don't get me wrong, but when you got another guy like that can both play, can both put up numbers, and if you want to fuck around, we're right here, boys.
Yeah, Tkachuk is a great leader. Tkachuk is just the little things for him. He's been around a long time and played a hard style, but he's a great leader. He didn't say a lot, but when he did, you listened, and you knew he always had your back. He was great around the net, and kind of, when you're playing and you're always doing that net front, it's like Scott Mellenby as well. Like when you finally get a chance to play with these guys, it feels refreshing knowing that you didn't have to go to the net every time. And back then, what it was like playing against the criminals like Pronger, Adam Foote, Gary and Hatcher. Those guys should be doing prison time for what they did. So it was nice to have knowing Tkachuk had your back, and And he had a great pair of hands around the net. He might have stole a few of JR and I's goals, but, whatever, that happened.
Hey, well, it's funny you say that. I remember my rookie year watching Prongs in front of the net going, how is he getting away with this? Even in the old rules, I'm like, and I love Prongs, so I'm thinking, how is he getting away? He just gave that guy 5 cross checks.
Oh, yeah. He should be doing time. You know what? I always thought it's tough playing against him. I would take that because I had to play with him. And so you got to deal with that shit every day in practice. It was better when it was just 4 times a year, but now to do it every day in practice, I'm like, oh, no. But no, those guys played a hard style, and nowadays you touch a guy and you're probably going to get suspended.
Yeah, no kidding. But you're so right about Prongs too, Big Walt. One thing I learned from was, first of all, how hard he passed the puck in practice, and then how hard he practiced every day. Like, there wasn't one day that Prongs took a day off. He came in and practiced extremely hard every single day. And I was like, if Chris Pronger can do that, I better, continue that habit throughout my career.
Yeah, he's got better skill than people think too. He can stretch you out for a breakaway pass. He can play the power play. We were playing a playoff series in Dallas, and it was a 4-minute high sticking penalty, and he played 3 minutes and 40 seconds straight. And the coach, Jimmy Roberts, was the defensive coach, and I think Prongs just changed himself. Whenever you get tired, you come off, But when you have a guy like Chris Pronger on the ice or Al McInnes, your team's going to be pretty successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Those Blues teams you guys had back in the day were fun as well. But when we talk about National Leaguers, Big Walt talks. You guys are all National Leaguers, and we're lucky enough to hang around with you now. And speaking of being lucky enough, Big Walt, I've got to know your family a little bit over the years. Your 2 sons, Maddie and Brady, have been unbelievable to the podcast, and so have you. I want to start with Maddie. Before we get into the good things, I thought about you during the finals. After they went 3-0, you had to do a couple Western Canada's back to Florida. How were those flights on you? How was the body feeling? At one point where you're just like, boys, can we end this, please?
That one day we went up there for game 4, I'll tell you. We met at the practice rink in Fort Lauderdale like 8 a.m. We landed at, Fort Lauderdale Airport the next day at 7 o'clock. So you're talking about a 23-hour shift on a plane up there. It was just the longest day of my life. And I think me and Brady and my daughter Taryn and a few other people, were sitting in the stands there, and just when they started getting clobbered, we were getting crucified. And we all had about friggin' 10 beers deep at that point. And we were like, let's get the hell out of here and go to the airport. But that was a tough day in the travel. I don't know how the players felt, but I know as a dad or a parent or a family member who didn't play, I was exhausted. So, but eventually they came through for us, but they made it interesting. And I got a little nervous. I'm not going to lie to you, but he reached his ultimate goal, is to be a Stanley Cup champion.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was getting a little nervous myself. I came in for game 7 and I had Matty on afterwards, and he talked about a pretty special moment of you and Brady walking him to the car for game 7. So from the dad's perspective, he said you guys didn't say a whole lot. You kind of just walked him out there. But how cool, or what was your feeling there walking him to the car?
Well, you try not to make you look nervous, but Matthews is as professional as it gets, like the way he approaches things, and he felt confident. And I always like to be there when I'm in town for the playoffs. I do my little stint for a couple hours at the elbow room before I know he gets up from his nap and goes to the rink. I like to walk him out and just tell him I love you and play hard and do what you do best. And but he felt good about it. And I was dying inside. Brady was dying inside. My wife was dying inside. But, his group found a way, and that's what makes them the champs now.
Yeah, and Big Walt, it's just so cool to see the support system with the whole family, and especially during playoff time and throughout that run. And once the boys finally got it done, I thought the best game film out of the whole thing and the parade and everything was you just bombing around on the golf cart, picking up the boys, going bar to bar, and just being there and right in the mix, because not only were you a hell of a player, but it just seems like obviously such a good dad and just right in there with the fellas. So I just love seeing that. And just how much fun was that, just going around and with the mug and hanging out? Like, that's what, every dad dreams about.
Yeah. I mean, we want the best for our kids, and this is just something extra. All our kids a great kid, but just to see Matthew play a sport he loves and then to reach ultimate goal. And I remember after they won, we were on the ice, and Matthew is very generous when it comes to, making sure everybody's included. And that's what I love about him. And, we were on the ice, then all the parents leave the ice, and then the players go in by themselves, which they should, and celebrate for a little bit. But this little bastard came up and grabbed me while everybody else was sitting there and brought me down to the locker room and just, gave me the cup, and they poured beer on me. And, then I don't know what happened. We got a ride home for somebody. And then when Matt and Chantel told me all the guys are coming over and we got to get ready at the house. And after that, it was almost over 48 hours with no sleep. So I loved being a part of it. I took the boys up to the elbow room, dropped them off, parked the car, and then we won't see this car for a couple more days. So it was fun. Then they took the golf cart and left me up there. I had nowhere to get home from the elbow room back to Matthew's. And Matthew was about a mile from the elbow room, and we had a big party at Matthew's house. So it was, I don't know. I'm just glad my parents were there to see that. It was the coolest thing. And in the way, the Vinny Viola and his family, Teresa, Florida does it right. They really do.
Yeah, that was great when you were in the room with the boys. And talking to Matty a couple days later after, he got his phone back in his hand, that was one of his favorite moments. He said, how about when my dad was in there and we were pouring beer on him, he's drinking out of the cup. I'm like, how cool is that? Because he knows what type of player you were, and he knows how much of a legend you were. And for him to share it with you, Big Walt, I know meant a lot to him. It was just a cool thing for everybody in the hockey world, my man.
Yeah, that's what makes Matthew. I mean, people see Matthew on the ice doing stuff, and yeah, it might drive me crazy sometimes, but he's a tremendous kid. I'm proud of him, and he knows how to handle himself with people. He treats people really good, and just for him to do that for myself meant the world to me. But that's the type of kid. Yeah, sometimes I want to crack him a few times, but he's a good kid, and I love the fact that he treats people really well with respect and never walked by anybody at the rink or anybody without saying hello, and that's what makes him special.
Yeah, and, you could tell they grew up around the game. Him and Brady, they're both loved by their teammates, and the trainers love him. That's a big thing for me, too. All the trainers love him. He takes care of those boys. But Jay Swish is right about the content. You had some great content. One of my favorite things is moving now. The Cup comes to St. Louis, and you talk about Matty doing he couldn't have done more great things with the Cup when I was in St. Louis. As a guy who's known him for a little time, I was so proud of him. But there was a picture of you with your feet up, with the cup beside you. You had a nice cigar in your mouth, and I was just like, this has got to be a great feeling for you, having your oldest boy bring the Cup to St. Louis. It must have been a cool experience for you.
It was. This is the place Matthew grew up in our family. That's where all the kids grew up, and I guess I like my cigars, but we did they gave Matthew the Cup for 48 hours, which is unheard of. So we got to have a lot of alone time, and we took it everywhere. And we did a lot of things with it. It was fun. It was so cool. After that, I had to go on a sabbatical for about 4 months. So it was good.
Yeah. No, it was great, and I couldn't have been happy for Matty and the boys in Florida. And like you said, that's why they're champions. Before we move on to some Four Nations and World Cup stuff, we got to talk about Brady. Brady is my favorite. I still call him a young captain. Is he still a young captain in your opinion? Well, I still call him a young captain.
Yeah, especially being a young captain on a young team. It makes him a little bit younger. So, yeah, Brady's a great kid. I'm so glad he's getting the opportunity to play with his best friend, his brother. And people, once again, see Brady as this crazy son of a bitch on the ice. And, yeah, he's got a little bit of a temper, but I love it. And there's no disrespect to my other kids because I love them so much, but he's our most lovable, he's just the most genuine son or kid that you'll ever have. He always cares about his mother and I, and he's just a genuinely down-to-earth, lovable kid, and he's just an amazing person. What you see on the ice is not him off the ice. He's just a tremendous kid, and I'm proud of him. I'm happy they're in the playoff on. There's a lot of pressure being a captain in Canada. There's probably a lot more pressure being a captain in Canada than there is being a captain anywhere else. So he's handled it well. They've had a little hit here the last couple games, but they've had some injuries. But they're in the mix, and that's all you can ask for. And, I want him to get in the playoffs so bad. He deserves it. But I'm glad he's having this opportunity to play in a playoff type, tournament this weekend to hopefully help him and his team down the next few months where it's going to be the most important.
Yeah, I love the way – I've always loved his game, and I think he's taken another step this year. And, at the start of the year, I love his energy. I love his fuck you. I love his, if things aren't going his way, he gets upset. And, there were some people in Canada saying this and that, and Greener stuck up for him. But when it comes to his temper, do you ever talk to him about managing a little bit more? Are you okay? Because I love the way he plays.
No. I told him, I don't give a shit what people say. If you're not happy you're losing, go out and do something. Yeah, I have no problem with that. In fact, if he doesn't do something, he's out of the will.
Well said.
By the way, I'm a grandfather now. Oh, nuts is that?
Yeah, I know. That is crazy, right?
That's awesome. But no, Brady's intense. I'm not going to take that away from him. Now, you don't want to be in the box all the time, and you got to pick your spots. You can't be fighting everybody's battles, but that's how he is. That's how he's built, and he cares about his teammates. And now, moving forward, the next 2 months, you got to pick your spots and try to find ways to win. That's more important. But I'm not going to ever tell him to settle down. That says there's too many soft people around the league that you got to try to get going, and you're going to worry about the other
Exactly.
please. That's my point. So
Yeah,
I have Brady's back.
That's 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. And Travis Green, he said it the same way when all that stuff went down. And there's 31 teams that would take Brady Tkachuk in the lineup. I guarantee that. And I love his game. When we look at the Senators before moving on to the World Cup here, Big Walt, I love Travis Green. I thought it was a great fit of him going in there. What have you noticed? I guess we're 50-some games in the season or more. What have you noticed the biggest change in the Sens with Greener as a head coach?
Well, they're more detailed, probably. They know they can't, and especially in the Atlantic Division, run and gun with the Maple Leafs, the Panthers, and Tampa. You have to have a little more detail defensively, and I think he's done a good job. He's gotten the most out of players. They've had a ton of injuries, including their number one goaltender, Allmark, and they're still finding a way. They've had terrible travel with the World Juniors. They found a way to come out 500 on that, and they're in the mix. Now, they lost a couple important games here down the stretch without Norris and Pinto, which are huge. But, I think Ottawa has to be in a position to be a buyer to help these guys out, to get them some more help. And that's what I expect from them. And I expect them to be in the playoffs.
Big Walt, moving on to the Four Nations and playing it back a little bit just to rivalry matches, the 96 World Cup of Hockey. And I just wanted to ask you, Big Walt, that lightsaber fight you had with Adam Foote to kick things off, is that the type of compete we're going to see a little bit on that criminal line heading into Montreal here? Or is that something just in the Pettis brother at this point?
I think that's in the past. We look back and laugh, and if you watch that series in '96, it was based in borderline like criminal, and you won't see that. The players nowadays are a little different, but when you have the Hatcher brothers on your team, Billy Guerin, Gary Suter, Chelly, Adam Deadmarsh, and they had who they had with Footer and guys like that. I mean, Fleury. It was crazy. It was, and I don't think you'll see that, but I think it was great for hockey, especially for USA Hockey moving forward, to finally pull through and to do it the way we did. Lou Amorello had us in training camp in Providence, Rhode Island, his home, for 10 days, and we were all together, and he kept a close eye on us, and we had a blast, and it carried over to that whole tournament.
Yeah, Big Walt, I want to, with your mindset, I know it was a while back, but what would your mindset go? Because I remember watching that tournament, and I'm like, wow, I don't know if I'm cut out for hockey or not here. This is the best players on the planet, and they're all fucking savages or criminals or whatever you want to call it. But was your mindset as Team USA going in there like, fuck these guys, we'll fight if we have to, and we're going in there with that kind of attitude, Big Walt?
Yeah, I mean, we had Paul Holmgren on the staff. I mean, that right there should tell you. But no, I mean, I think we were young and dumb, but you had veteran guys like Chelly and Suits, LaFontaine, Joel Otto, another guy. And then you had a bunch of guys that were entering their prime and still in their prime. So, it was fun. But, Canada, they've won everything, and they deserve to be the best they are. And but to go in there and do that, I think that changed the way, the philosophy of USA Hockey, and that was a blast. I mean, to do that 2 games in a row in Montreal was incredible.
And Big Walt, just lastly on the 96 World Cup of Hockey, because, I was roughly 3 years old at the time. I wasn't able to watch these games. A lot of these kids, hearing you talk about it and how intense it was. And I even saw an interview that you said probably 8 to 10 years ago where you almost got in a fight with some fans walking to the fight. A bunch of drunk Canadians. Like, talk through that, brother. Like, were you close to chucking?
Oh, I was with Billy G and Dougie Wade. We always walked over together. I think maybe Mo was there. I don't even know. But we knew we weren't going to get much help from him. We needed him during the game. But, yeah, the people are crazy before the game. You know how they paint their faces, and we got the flags out and driving around beeping, giving us shit. It was a short walkover from the Chateau Champlain, or whatever it's called, to to the rink, and oh yeah, we were ready to go. We wanted somebody, but that was just an intense moment, and luckily it didn't happen because there was a lot more of them than us. So yeah, we were down trying.
Yeah, that's hockey. AJ Swiss, that's hockey. Get into the fight on the way to the barn. That's hockey.
That's awesome. That fires me up just hearing that.
Yeah, so Big Walt, let's move on to Four Nations. We're going to be there Saturday night for for Canada versus USA. I love Jay Swish, hoping it's going to be like 96. I'm not expecting 96, but I am expecting a good game with lots of atmosphere and intensity, and I know your two boys are going to bring it. I guess my question is, what's the most exciting thing for you to finally go in there and watch Maddie and Brady play together? What are you most excited about, Big Walt?
Well, besides watching them play, it's just I think it's a great thing for hockey, and you look at both lineups, and you're like, Canada always had a good lineup for years because they were the best, and USA, prior to '96, you might have had like 3-4 good players and the rest good players. I think you look at all the guys in the lineup, all of them have had heck of a years, and it's just the star-studded event, not only just for Canada and US, but Finland and Sweden. I mean, it's incredible. I think it's great for the game to do something like this, but I think it's going to be intense Saturday night. It's not going to be like 96, but I mean, you have, McDavid, Crosby, McKinnon on one team, and everybody's considering the U.S. favorites. It's just crazy. But it's going to be a high-paced, high-physical game. I don't think you'll see the rough stuff. You might early, but I think things will settle down. It's going to be a heck of an event. I think it's going to be – I'm just glad I'm going to watch.
Yeah, and I'm looking at this lineup, at least, the initial lineup card here, Walt. And I'm looking at this third line, I guess, on paper with Brady, JT Miller, and Boldy. Now, it's not going to be quite like 96, but those two boys, they can bang it up a little bit. And Millsy and Brady, obviously your son, I'm looking forward to those guys playing together because I think they can start bringing just a little bit of that criminal element, finish with some hits, and bringing that big style of hockey. So I'm fired up to see that line.
Yeah, I hope so. Boldy better know what it's like to get into a lot of scrums. He's going to be going in there with those two morons. So. But no, I think it's going to be fun. All three guys are competitive guys. They play hard, and they have some finesse. But I think you can't have all skill guys. You need some guys with skill and compete. And I think that's why you've seen some of the changes on both teams. They got Bennett. Guys like them are boxing. Michon plays hard, and Hagel. So I think it's going to be great. It's going to be competitive, and just get the puck in the corner and let the caged animals go at it.
Yeah, I know. It's like Team USA. As a Canadian, you guys are tougher than us for the first time. Maybe since '96, Big Walt, and your two boys are the big reason why. But Big Walt, I want to talk to you about USA hockey. I was lucky enough during the All-Star game to come over to Maddie's house, and I sat down with you, and then Chelly showed up. But before that, all the USA hockey boys were at Maddie's house, and they seemed to have a connection that as a Canadian, I was like, wow, this is really special. Like, how important is that, and how far USA hockey's come with that program? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It's, first of all, Chris Chelios, we call him the godfather of USA hockey because he is. He's an amazing person, amazing leader. I learned a lot from him at '96. He always kept guys together. He was a guy's guy. But, in terms of USA hockey, you got, I was just laughing. When they named the captaincy to the three captains of USA, all three of those guys played on the U.S. National Development Team program for the '97 group, which is great. But there's a bond there, and all these kids have grown up together. Yeah, you got a couple guys that are a little bit older, but most of these guys were at that same program, who played World Juniors together, and they have a great bond, and I think it's pretty special. These kids all get along, but it's funny when they get along now, but when they play each other in the playoffs, it's like chaos, and it's great. That's the way it should be, but USA Hockey's done an exceptional job. The reason why I'm a hockey player, watching Mike Eruzione and Jack O'Callaghan in the '80 Olympics. And I'm sure a lot of these guys were too young for the '96 team, but that had a trickle-down effect. Patrick Kane era had another trickle-down effect. So USA Hockey's in a great position. I think you're going to see more and more, especially when I was growing up, it was just Massachusetts, Michigan, and Minnesota. Now you got lakes like Schmaltz, he's coming out of Chicago, St. Louis, Texas, California. And then 10, 15 years down the line, you're going to see Vegas-born players. You're going to see Florida-born players. So it's USA Hockey's in a great position to succeed for the next bunch of years.
And Walt, my last question for you was, as a kid growing up, especially playing in and around the Chicago area, when I would go to the Total Hockey store, I'd go to some of these places to buy a stick. The TPS rubber response Tkachuk curve was always in there. It was that yellow stick that just looked nasty. Every kid either wanted the Synergy or the response, or maybe even both. How did you first get hooked up with TPS? Were they paying you the most? But that's like an iconic stick when I look back at the early 2000s of you using that TPS response, fella.
I loved it back when I was originally did a deal with Louisville back in the Winnipeg days, and it carried over to Arizona. Then I made some switches, but it was an awesome stick. I loved it. I don't know. I've never been one of these guys that gets into the sticks like the kids do nowadays. Yeah. I used to just give me a stick, tape it up, and go with it. So, and then as the older I got a little heavier stick and made it like a little bit, when you get the cross checks going. So, but no, that was funny. Nowadays, you see all these kids sticks in the stores, and I think it's hilarious. Boy, time flies.
Yeah, well, Big Walt, buddy, thank you so much. Listen, you're a Hall of Famer. You should be in there. Hopefully that day comes, buddy. But you're a legend of the game. You're a great man. You're good for hockey. And hopefully I bump into you in Montreal. If I do, cocktails on me, fella.
Oh, I like that idea, OB. Well, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. Go USA.